There's an argument running through this community about whether XRP is a security, and my read is that both sides are fighting over the wrong piece of paper. This is your XRP news desk. Before anybody settles what your coins legally are, somebody else has already settled where in the world they sit. Those are two different questions, and they get decided in two different rooms. There's a line in a Treasury proposal published on August 18th that says out loud, whose law follows you home, and I'll get to it. There's also a number out of South Korea I didn't expect to be dealing with today. If you'd rather have the filing than the reaction to the filing, subscribe and hit the like button. Let's start with the boring part, because the boring part turns out to be the entire thing of this video. The XRP Ledger is a list of accounts. An account has a balance, and an account has a controller, and that's roughly the extent of what the ledger knows. It doesn't know your name, it doesn't know your brokerage login, it doesn't even know your face. It doesn't have to know which country you woke up in the morning. It only knows the account. So here's the question sitting underneath every other question we're going to argue about today. When a platform holds XRP for you, whose account is it in? You already know the answer. It's theirs. What you're holding is a claim on a company, and what the ledger is holding is a balance under somebody else's control. And those two things feel identical right up until the morning they don't. Here's what that looks like in a document I just opened up. There's a spot Zcash fund due to start trading on the New York Stock Exchange today, and the write-up on it is unusually plain about the plumbing. The fund holds up to 393,000 coins, worth more than $260 million in Coinbase's custody, not the shareholders, that's Coinbase. And the same pieces point out that XRP already has ETFs trading in the United States. That's the part I've cheered plenty of times myself, but without ever following the sentence to the end. So who owns these coins? The fund does. Who holds them? Somebody else entirely. A fund buys the coins. A custodian holds those coins. An investor holds a share. Three parties, three different things, and exactly one of them shows up on a ledger. That isn't a scandal. That's just what a fund is. But it doesn't mean that when we say institutions are buying XRP, the accurate version of that sentence is that institutions are buying a claim on a custodian who holds XRP. And a custodian has an address. An address is a country. A country is a regulator. A custody is not a storage question. Custody is a jurisdiction question. How do we know that it matters? Because Ripple already told us in the most boring way available with a number. Brad Garlinghouse said it at the SALT event in Wyoming. Ripple has 75 licenses around the world. Why would a company telling you the law is finally getting clear need 75 separate permissions to do its job? Nobody collects 75 licenses because they enjoy paperwork. You collect 75 licenses because there's no single global rulebook for moving money. And every border has somebody standing at it holding a different rulebook. Garlinghouse also said something else I want to keep exact, because the exact version is stronger than any paraphrase. On the court fight, his words were that a federal judge wrote the sentence that XRP in and of itself is not a security, and he called that the Clarity Act for XRP. He's right. It is clarity. It's clarity about the one question in one country, and I've watched this community stretch it to cover a planet. Now the Treasury proposal. On August 18th, the Treasury published a proposal rule implementing Section 3 of the Genius Act, the stablecoin law enacted back in July of 2025. Deep in the background section, there's one sentence about how far Section 3 reaches. The phrase they use is extraterritorial effect. It's intended to apply if conduct involves the offer or sale of a payment stablecoin to a person located in the United States. Extraterritorial effect. If the person is located in the United States, not the company, not the server, the actual person. So whose law is it? On the language, it follows the human being, not the postcode on the incorporation papers. That is a rulemaking saying out loud that it doesn't care where the business sits. It cares about where you're standing. The platform can be registered anywhere it likes. If a human on the other end of it is in America, American law reaches across those waters and puts a hand on it. Comments on that one close on October 19th, and the SEC's own crypto proposal, Regulation Crypto Asset, closes on October 20th. 2 windows, 2 agencies, and this isn't theoretical for us because RLUSD lives on the XRP Ledger. And this morning, there's roughly 962 million RLUSD sitting there as an issuer's obligation. That word obligation is carrying a lot of weight. An obligation means somebody owes it. Somebody on the hook means somebody with a regulator, and a regulator comes with a flag. Now, South Korea. Over the weekend, money rotated there hard out of technology stocks and into crypto, and XRP took the lead on Upbit, the country's largest exchange. XRP was trading over $300 million of daily volume. That's nearly 22% of every single trade happening within XRP. XRP was ahead of all other crypto assets on that Korean exchange, and XRP is changing hands right now at $1.48, a number that didn't get decided in a boardroom in New York. And here's the part that made me completely stop. The kimchi premium, the gap between the Korean price and the global price, is sitting near negative 0.5%. Seoul is trading in line with the rest of the world, and the report I read takes that as confirmation that Korean volume is the main global engine purchasing XRP worldwide. But if it's right, then the figure you checked this morning was set in large part by traders in Seoul on an exchange licensed in Seoul, holding coins in accounts that belong to a company in Seoul. That's the geopolitics of it. Not a summit, not a treaty, a retail rotation in one country and a custody arrangement under one country's law. And between them, they moved what your asset was worth on Monday. What's your read on that one? Put it in the comments because I'd love to hear. Do you believe the Korean retail is the engine behind XRP? Which brings me to the one thing a lot of people got wrong, and got it wrong out loud for years. It treated the court case as the main event. Security or not, a security. That was the scoreboard, and everything else was noise. That ruling matters, and I'm not walking it back. But the way I read it now, it was only ever half the question, because a court can tell you what the asset is and still tell you nothing about who is holding yours or which flag flies over the building it's held in. And now look at how much of this market is claims rather than coins. On Bitfinex, XRP margin longs surged to over 6 billion coins, almost 4.5 times actual spot turnover. Those are not coins moving between people. Those are contracts about coins written between counterparties, enforceable in courts, and courts sit in countries. Wintermute has an XRP short worth more than $10 million right now, and plenty of people are reading it as a verdict on the asset. The CEO of that company has actually hit back. When a market maker that size goes short, it's usually managing its own inventory and collecting a premium. It's not a bet that the price is going to go down. I'm inclined to take it for his word, but none of this is advice. It's description of the plumbing, and what you do with it is your own. Now, what actually fixes any of this? It's not a lawsuit, it's code, and it's being voted on right now. Version 3.3.0 of the XRP Ledger software is rolling out, and more than 60% of nodes have already taken it inside of an amendment called permission delegation, and it does exactly what it sounds like. It lets one account hand another account a specific narrow permission on the ledger out in the open. The rule is the code. It isn't a customer agreement that gets rewritten when a company moves countries. There's another one in there called sponsor for reserve and transaction sponsoring, and there's a bundle of fixes sitting at around 70% consensus, and they do need 80% to activate. If it gets there or it doesn't, nobody can simply decide by themselves. The network defends itself while that vote happens too. If an amendment activates and a server hasn't upgraded, that server becomes amendment blocked and it can't validate the ledger. It can't process transactions. It can't join consensus. It can't vote on anything else. Rather than guessing at the rules it no longer understands, it stops taking part. That is a governance process with teeth, and it is very different animal from a custody arrangement that gets written by an email you never opened. That's the bull case I actually hold, and it has nothing to do with the chart. The network just closed ledger number 106 million without anybody asking for permission, and the rules governing it changed by a vote that nobody owns individually. Ripple collected 75 licenses to operate inside a world of borders. The ledger was built for a world that doesn't have any of those. Both of those are true, and only one of them compounds. Send this to a holder who thinks custody is just a password. Stack facts, not fear. Hit the like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.